The emergency beacon screamed across the void of space, a desperate cry for help that few would hear and fewer would answer. On the mining colony of Thatnine, 3,000 Velron citizens huddled in their habitat domes, watching the sensors with growing terror. The Krath swarm was coming, and everyone knew what that meant. Colony Director Velinara stood in the command center, her forearms trembling as she maintained the distress signal. The Velrons were a peaceful species, traders and miners who had never known war until now. Their colony sat on the edge of civilized space, rich in rare minerals but far from any military protection. It had seemed like a good opportunity once. Now, it was a death sentence. How long until they arrive? She asked her security chief. 2 cycles, maybe less. They're accelerating hard. Elenara activated the long-range communicator and sent another plea to the Galactic Council. She had been sending them for hours now, each one more desperate than the last. The Council was supposed to protect colonies like theirs. That was the promise. That was why they paid their taxes and followed the regulations. The reply came faster this time, but it brought no comfort. Admiral Vexla's face appeared on the screen, his expression carefully neutral. His species, the Torvin, were known for their logic and cold calculations. Director Velinara, we have received your distress calls. I regret to inform you that the nearest Council fleet is 6 cycles away from your position. 6 cycles? Velinara felt her blood turn cold. Admiral, the Krath will be here in 2 cycles. We need help now. Understand your situation. However, fleet deployment requires careful coordination. We cannot risk valuable military assets on uncertain outcomes. I advise you to begin evacuation procedures. Evacuate to where? Velinara's voice rose despite her efforts to stay calm. We're on the frontier. There's nowhere to go. We have children here, Admiral. Families. We need protection. Vexla was silent for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was softer, but no less final. I am truly sorry, Director. The Council has made its decision. May you find peace in the void. The transmission ended. Velinara stared at the blank screen, unable to process what had just happened. The Council had abandoned them. They were going to die. The most powerful organization in the galaxy had decided they weren't worth saving. Across the darkness of space, far from Council shipping lanes, the human vessel Shadow of Earth drifted in silent running mode. It was a small ship by military standards, barely 200 meters long, painted in colors that seemed to drink in light rather than reflect it. To any scanner, it appeared as nothing more than background radiation, a ghost ship that haunted the empty spaces between stars. On the bridge, Cap Taiyang reviewed the patrol route with tired eyes. He was a tall man, even by human standards, with dark hair starting to show gray at the temples. His uniform bore no insignia that any galactic database would recognize. As far as the Council knew, Earth ships didn't exist in this sector. As far as the Council knew, humans barely existed at all. Captain, I'm picking up something strange, Jiwan said, from the communications station. She was young for her position, but she had good instincts. It's a distress signal, but it's been bounced through multiple relay stations. Someone's trying very hard to be heard. Put it through, Taiyang ordered. The signal filled the bridge, a mixture of standard galactic distress codes and raw emotional pleading. The Velron director's voice crackled through the speakers, describing the approaching Krath swarm, begging for help that wasn't coming. Check Council response, Taiyang said quietly. Giwan worked her console for a moment, then looked up with disgust. They've classified it as unsalvageable. The official response was sent 20 minutes ago. They're not coming. Minho, the first officer, moved to stand beside Taiyang's chair. He was shorter than the captain, but built like a wrestler, with scarred hands that told stories of a rough past. We could reach them in 1 cycle if we pushed the engines hard. But Captain, this isn't our mission. Earth Command sent us out here to observe, not to engage. Earth Command is 3 weeks away by fastest courier, Taiyang replied. Those people will be dead in 2 cycles. The Council made their choice. The Council is wrong. The bridge fell silent. Every member of the crew knew what this meant. Humanity had been playing a careful game for decades now. Watching the galaxy from the shadows, learning its strengths and weaknesses. They had built ships like the Shadow of Earth specifically to avoid notice, to gather intelligence without triggering the panic that would come if the galactic community truly understood what humans were capable of. Earth was classified as a Class 12. Hazard World in Council databases. A planet so hostile that sentient life should never have evolved there. Gravity that would crush most species, whether that could kill in minutes. Predators that hunted with terrifying efficiency, and diseases that turned bodies against themselves. The galaxy looked at Earth's conditions and saw a nightmare. They looked at humans and saw impossible survivors who shouldn't exist. There were stories, of course. Rumors of Deathworlders who could break bones with their bare hands, who could run for hours without rest, who healed from wounds that would kill any civilized species. Most council members dismissed these stories as exaggerations or propaganda. A few understood the truth and quietly ensured that Earth remained isolated, quarantined, safely ignored. Taiyang had spent 10 years in deep space, watching colonies like That 9 struggle and sometimes fail while the council debated response times and resource allocation. He had seen pirates raid settlements, seen slave traders take families, seen disasters unfold while bureaucrats calculated acceptable losses. He had followed his orders, stayed hidden, and filed reports that no one would read for months. He was tired of watching. Helm plot a course to Thatanine. Maximum burn. Route all unnecessary power to the engines. A key stood from his chair and faced his crew. I know what I'm asking. Once we reveal ourselves, there's no going back. The galaxy will know humans are out here. They'll know what we can do. Some of them will be grateful. Some of them will be terrified. But right now, 3,000 people are waiting to die because no one else will help them. Jaewon spoke first. I'm with you, Captain. Round the bridge, the crew began nodding. These were volunteers, every one of them. People who had signed up knowing they might spend years in the dark without recognition or glory. They hadn't joined to hide. Good Taiyang said. Then let's go save some lives. And let's show the galaxy what humans do when someone needs help. The Shadow of Earth came alive, fusion engines burning bright as it accelerated toward Thatanine. Behind them, the darkness of their long concealment fell away. Ahead, a battle waited that would change everything. The age of humanity's silence was ending. The age of their guardianship was about to begin. The Krath swarm arrived at Thatanine like a plague of metal locusts descending on a helpless crop. 12 warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system, holes scarred from 100 battles, their weapons already charging for the kill. Warlord Krasik stood on the bridge of his flagship, mandibles clicking with satisfaction as he surveyed the pathetic colony defenses. The Krath were raiders by culture and predators by evolution. They came from a world of endless competition where only the strong survived long enough to breed. Their exoskeletons could turn aside small arms' fire. Their forelegs gave them stability in any environment, and their 2 fighting arms could wield weapons with deadly precision. They had carved out a reputation across the frontier as the species you paid to go away or died trying to fight. Deploy the fleet in standard siege formation, Krasik's ordered. Target their shields first. I want them to watch their protection fail, piece by piece. Fear makes them more compliant. His tactical officer, a younger warrior named Vex, studied the colony's defenses. Their shields are civilian-grade, Warlord. We could breach them in one cycle with concentrated fire. We could. Krasix agreed. But where's the profit in speed? Let them sweat. Let them exhaust themselves preparing for an attack that they cannot stop. When we finally breach those domes, they'll be too tired to resist effectively. He pointed a clawed finger at the communication station. Send them our terms. The usual arrangement. The transmission broadcast across all frequencies, impossible for the colony to ignore. Krasix's image appeared on every screen in Thatanine, and his translator rendered his clicking speech into galactic standard. People of Thatanine, I am Warlord Krasix of the Krath Swarm. Your council has abandoned you. Your defenses are meaningless. You have one cycle to make your choice. Surrender all resources and submit to servitude, or we will crack your domes and take what we want from your corpses. Choose wisely. In the colony command center, Velanara watched the transmission with hollow eyes. Around her, the other administrators and security personnel waited for her decision, but she knew there was no real choice. Surrender meant slavery at best, death at worst. The Krath were not known for keeping their promises. Continue strengthening the shield generators, she said quietly. Distribute weapons to anyone trained to use them. Seal the emergency shelters and move all children there first. She paused, steadying herself. And send one more message to the council. For the record, she recorded it herself, keeping her voice calm, even as her hands shook. This is Colony Director Velanara of Thatneen, making my final report. The Krath swarm has arrived and given us one cycle before they attack. We have received no support from Council forces. We will defend ourselves to the best of our ability, but we harbor no illusions about our chances. To whoever reviews this message, please know that we served the Council faithfully. We paid our taxes. We followed the laws. We trusted in the promise of protection. That promise was broken. We died alone because we were not deemed worth saving. She sent the message and closed the channel. Around her, the security team began checking their weapons with grim determination. They were miners and technicians, not soldiers, but they would fight anyway. What else could they do? Aboard the Shadow of Earth, racing through space at speeds that made the hull groan, the crew prepared for battle. Lieutenant Sujin ran combat simulations in the tactical center, her fingers dancing across holographic displays as she calculated firing solutions and approach vectors. The numbers were brutal. 40 humans against 12 warships and an estimated 400 Krath warriors. The computer gave them a 3% chance of survival. Sujin smiled coldly at the odds. She had survived worse. They all had. She pulled up the specifications on Krath warships from humanity's intelligence database. The ships were old designs, tough but not particularly sophisticated. Heavy armor, plasma cannons, kinetic missile batteries. Dangerous in numbers, vulnerable if you could isolate them. The Krath relied on overwhelming force and intimidation. They had never faced an enemy that refused to be intimidated in the armory. Sergeant Deho and his Marine squad checked their equipment with practiced efficiency. Their armor was matte black, covered in sensors and reactive plates that could absorb incredible punishment. Their weapons were simple by galactic standards, chemically propelled rifles that fired dense metal slugs at hypersonic velocities. Most species had abandoned such primitive weapons centuries ago in favor of plasma and energy weapons. Humans had kept them because they worked. A slug didn't care about shields or energy absorption. It just punched through whatever was in front of it with pure kinetic force. Make sure your seals are tight, Deho ordered his squad. We're probably going to end up boarding at least one of those ships. And I don't want anyone sucking vacuum because they rushed the pre-check. Private J, the youngest of the squad, looked up from his rifle. Sarge, is it true we're really doing this? Taking on a whole swarm by ourselves? That's the plan. That's crazy. Deho grinned, showing teeth. Kid, we're from Earth. Crazy is what we do best. In the engineering section, Hyeri worked miracles with the ship's power systems. She rerouted energy from life support, reducing oxygen levels to the minimum required for consciousness. She diverted power from artificial gravity in non-essential areas. She pushed the fusion reactor beyond its rated capacity, knowing that if something went wrong, they would all die in a ball of superheated plasma. But nothing went wrong. Hyeri had been maintaining Starship engines since she was 16 years old. And she knew the Shadow of Earth better than she knew her own heartbeat. The ship responded to her touch like a living thing, giving her everything she asked for and more. On the bridge, Weapons Officer Junho loaded the torpedo tubes with munitions that made him smile. Nuclear warheads, banned by Council convention for being too destructive. Humanity had signed that convention and immediately violated it by building weapons that were even worse. The torpedoes in their tubes weren't just nuclear. They were enhanced with exotic matter that would create sustained fusion reactions. Miniature stars that would burn for several seconds before finally extinguishing when the Krath ships appeared on their long-range sensors. Yunho sent the weapons status to Captain Tai Yang. All systems green. All munitions loaded. Ready to bring hell. Taeyang stood at the center of the bridge, watching the tactical display with calm focus. Thatnine appeared as a blue dot, already surrounded by red hostile markers. The shadow of Earth was a green arrow, rapidly approaching from an unexpected angle. In less than an hour, they would be in weapons range. Communications. Prepare a message to the colony, Taeyang ordered. When we're close enough, I want them to know help is coming. Jiwon nodded. Ready when you are, Captain? All hands, this is the captain speaking. Yang's voice echoed through every compartment of the ship. We are about to engage a superior force to defend people who don't know we exist and save lives the Council deemed expendable. What we do in the next few hours will reveal humanity to this sector of space. They will know we exist. They will know what we can do. Make sure they also know why we do it. He looked at his crew, these men and women who had chosen to stand watch in the darkness. Show them that when someone calls for help, humans answer, no matter the cost. The shadow of Earth dropped out of maximum acceleration. Weapon systems coming online with a hum that resonated through the deck plates. Ahead, the Krath swarm continued their siege. Unaware that death was approaching from the shadows, the Deathworlders had arrived. Warlord Krasix watched the countdown with growing anticipation. The colony's deadline was approaching, and he could already taste the victory. The Velrans had made no attempt to surrender, which meant they would fight. It would be brief and pointless, but it would give his warriors something to do. The Krath swarm had been raiding soft targets for months now, and his troops were getting bored. Warlord, our sensors are detecting something unusual, Vex reported from the tactical station. His voice carried a note of concern that made Krasix's mandibles twitch. Define unusual. There's a contact at the edge of the system. It just appeared. No FTL signature that we detected. It's accelerating toward us at 0.7 light speed. Krasix felt a flutter of unease. Nothing should be able to move that fast in normal space without tearing itself apart. What kind of ship? Unknown configuration. It's not in any of our databases. The energy signature is strange, focused somehow. In Warlord, it's small. Maybe 200 meters, frigate class at most. A single frigate. Krasix relaxed slightly. Perhaps some opportunistic scavenger thought to steal from the colony after the swarm had finished. Ignore it. If it comes within range, destroy it. We have more important matters. But Vex was still studying his screens, his expression troubled. Warlord, that ship is not slowing down. At its current velocity, it will be in weapons range in 15 minutes. Then it will die in 15 minutes. Send 2 ships to intercept. Make it quick. 2 Krath warships broke formation, angling toward the approaching contact. They were cruiser-class vessels, each mounting enough firepower to level a small city. Against a lone frigate, they should have been overwhelming force. The shadow of Earth didn't slow its approach. On the bridge, Captain Taeyang watched the 2 Krath ships move to intercept with cold calculation. Weapons Officer Junho had already computed firing solutions, updating them constantly as the range decreased. They're in range, Captain, Junho reported. Fire railguns. 2 rounds, sequential targeting. Railguns were humanity's answer to the galaxy's energy weapons. They used electromagnetic force to accelerate tungsten penetrators to a significant fraction of light speed. The projectiles had no warheads, no explosives, no fancy technology. They were just extremely dense metal, moving extremely fast. When something moved fast enough, it didn't need to be complicated. The first round traveled the distance between ships in 1.3 seconds. The Krath cruiser's shields lit up, energy barriers designed to disperse plasma and deflect missiles. They were excellent shields, top of the line for pirate vessels. They had never been designed to stop a telephone pole-sized chunk of tungsten moving at 40,000 kilometers per second. The penetrator went through the shield like it wasn't there. It went through the armor like paper. It went through the entire ship, front to back, creating a tunnel of superheated metal and explosive decompression. Secondary explosions rippled along the cruiser's length as power conduits failed and fuel lines ruptured. The ship came apart in an expanding cloud of debris and frozen atmosphere. The second Krath cruiser had exactly enough time to register what happened to its companion before the second railgun round arrived. This shot was even more precise, striking the cruiser directly in its reactor housing. The fusion bottle failed catastrophically, releasing the energy of a small star directly into the ship's interior. The explosion was bright enough to be seen from the colony's surface. On Thatnine, Velinara stared at the sensor displays in disbelief. 2 Krath warships gone in seconds? The unknown contact was still approaching, still accelerating, completely undamaged. What is that thing? Her security chief whispered. Velinara had no answer. Nothing in council space could do what they had just witnessed. Nothing in the known galaxy moved that fast or hit that hard. Aboard his flagship, Krasix felt fear for the first time in years. His tactical display showed the wreckage of 2 ships and a contact that showed no sign of slowing. All ships, combat formation. Concentrate fire on that vessel. Destroy it now. The remaining 10 Krath warships opened fire simultaneously. Plasma bolts lanced across space, enough firepower to vaporize a small moon. Kinetic missiles streaked from their tubes, creating a wall of explosives that nothing could dodge. The shadow of Earth vanished. Not destroyed, not disabled. It simply disappeared from sensors, replaced by a cloud of electronic interference and metallic chaff that scattered every sensor beam and absorbed every targeting lock. The Krath weapons hit empty space, detonating uselessly in the void. When the interference cleared, the human ship had moved. It was no longer approaching from the edge of the system. It was in the middle of the Krath formation, having used its impossible acceleration to dive through their defenses while they were blinded. How? Vex breathed. How did it move that fast? Krasix had no answer. The Krath had raided hundreds of systems, fought dozens of species, and never encountered anything like this. The ship didn't move like a normal vessel. It moved like a predator, like something that hunted for survival. The shadow of Earth fired again. This time it was torpedoes, 6 of them, each targeting a different Krath ship. Point defense systems came online trying to shoot down the missiles, but these weren't normal torpedoes. They maneuvered like living things, dodging and weaving through defensive fire with inhuman precision. 3 made it through. 3 miniature suns bloomed among the Krath swarm. On the bridge of the shadow of Earth, Captain Taiyang coordinated his crew with calm precision. This was what they had trained for, what they had prepared for during endless drills in deep space. The Krath were dangerous, yes, but they fought like pirates, relying on fear and overwhelming numbers. They had never fought an enemy that had spent millions of years evolving on a world that tried to kill them every single day. Minho, bring us around for another pass. Junho, reload all tubes. Giwan, open a channel to the colony. Communications Officer Giwan worked her console, cutting through the Krath, jamming with ease. She had cracked far more sophisticated encryption during her training. Channel open, Captain. Taiyang's voice broadcast to Thatnine.com and professional. Colony Thatnine. This is the Earth ship Shadow of Earth. Hold your position. Relief has arrived. In the command center, Velinara felt her legs nearly give out. Earth. But Earth is quarantined. Earth is a myth. Quan allowed herself a small smile. No, Director. We're very real. And we heard your call for help. Who are you? What are you? We're human, Giwan replied simply. And we don't abandon people who need help. On the Krath flagship, Warlord Krasix made a decision that went against every instinct of his warrior culture. He had lost 5 ships in less than 10 minutes to a single enemy vessel that shouldn't exist. His remaining forces were in disarray, his warriors terrified of an opponent they couldn't understand. All ships, prepare to retreat. We're leaving this system. Warlord, we outnumber them 10-1. Vex protested. We can still die. Krasix snapped. That ship is from Earth. Do you understand what that means? Earth is a Class 12 hazard world. The species that evolved there survived conditions that would kill us in hours. Look at how they fight. They don't fear us. We're not the predators here. They are the shadow of Earth fired again, and another Krath ship died. The remaining vessels began activating their FTL drives. Desperate to escape, Krasix watched the unknown ship, the impossible ship, and understood that the galaxy had changed. Humans were real. Deathworlders were real. And they had just announced their presence by destroying the most feared pirate fleet on the frontier. "Get us out of here," he ordered, "and send word to every Krath fleet. Tell them to avoid this sector. Tell them the humans are here." 3 Krath ships jumped to FTL engines screaming, leaving behind the wreckage of 9 vessels and the broken remnants of their reputation. The shadow of Earth didn't pursue. It moved toward Thatanine, toward the colony that had called for help and been answered by impossible guardians. On the colony, 3,000 Velrans watched the human ship approach, not knowing whether to feel relief or terror. The humans had saved them, yes. But what exactly had they been saved by? The wreckage of 9 Krath warships drifted through space around Thatanine, glowing metal and frozen atmosphere creating a graveyard of what had been the most feared pirate fleet on the frontier. 3 ships had escaped, limping away into faster than light with their hulls breached and their warriors broken. On the bridge of the shadow of Earth, Captain Taiyang watched them go without emotion. "Should we pursue, Captain?" Weapons Officer Junho asked, his fingers still hovering over the fire controls. Taiyang shook his head. "No, let them run. Let them spread the word about what happened here. They'll tell everyone that humans exist, that we're active in this sector. Good. The hiding is over." Taiyang stood from his command chair and straightened his uniform. The galaxy needs to know that someone is watching. Someone is willing to fight for the people the Council abandons. He turned to Communications Officer Guan. "Send a message to the colony. Tell them we're approaching to render assistance. Make sure they know we're here to help, not to conquer." Guan opened the channel, her voice gentle. "Thatanine, this is the shadow of Earth. We're moving to dock with your station. We have medical supplies and engineering support. Request permission to come aboard." There was a long pause before Colony Director Velinara responded, her voice shaking. "Shadow of Earth? Permission granted. And thank you. I don't know what else to say. Just thank you." The human ship moved with careful precision toward the colony's docking port, its engines throttling down to minimum thrust. Up close, the Velrans could see the shadow of Earth's true design. It was lean and predatory, every line optimized for speed and combat efficiency. There was no wasted space, no decorative elements. This was a ship built by a species that understood violence on a fundamental level. As the airlock cycled open, the colonists gathered in the docking bay, curiosity warring with apprehension. They had heard stories about humans. Whispered tales passed between traders and travelers. Earth was quarantined for a reason, people said. The species that evolved there were dangerous, unpredictable, barely civilized. They were stronger than they should be, faster than made sense, and they healed from wounds that would kill any reasonable being. The airlock opened. Captain Taiyang stepped through. The Velrans stared. Taiyang was tall, easily 2 meters, with broad shoulders and a presence that filled the space. His dark hair was cut short in a practical style. His eyes scanned the crowd with an alertness that suggested he was constantly assessing threats. Behind him came First Officer Minho, built like a block of muscle, and Chief Medical Officer Xian. Carrying medical equipment with practiced ease, more humans followed, each one moving with a fluid grace that spoke of perfect balance and physical conditioning. They wore uniforms of dark blue with silver insignia, and though they carried no visible weapons, there was something about them that suggested they didn't need weapons to be dangerous. Velinara stepped forward. Her forearms spread in the Velran gesture of peaceful greeting. "Captain Taiyang, I am Colony Director Velinara. On behalf of everyone here, thank you for saving our lives." Taiyang inclined his head respectfully. He had studied dozens of species during his years in deep space, learning their customs and body language. "Director, we're glad we arrived in time. No one should face extinction alone while help is possible." The Council said no help was possible. The Council was wrong. Taiyang's voice was firm but not harsh. How many casualties did you sustain during the siege? 17 injured when the Krath opened fire on our shields. Most of them are burns from power conduit failures. We have them in our medical center, but our supplies are limited. Chief Medical Officer Xian spoke up, her voice professional. We can help with that. Human medical technology is compatible with most carbon-based species. May I see your wounded? Velinara hesitated. Allowing aliens into their medical center, especially aliens from a quarantined world, went against every protocol. But these aliens had just saved them from certain death. Of course. This way. As Xian and her medical team followed the colony's doctors, Taiyang turned to the crowd of colonists. They were watching him with a mixture of gratitude and fear, and he understood why. Humans had been absent from galactic affairs for so long that they had become legends, and legends were rarely comforting. I know you have questions, Taiyang said, his voice carrying across the docking bay. You want to know who we are? Where we came from? Why we helped you? The simple answer is this. We're from Earth, and we've been watching the frontier for years. We've seen colonies struggle. We've seen pirates raid settlements. We've seen the Council's protection fail people who needed it most. Today, we decided to stop watching and start acting. A young Velron, barely into adulthood, raised a tentative hand. Are you going to occupy our colony? Take our resources. No, Taiyang said firmly. We're not conquerors. We're not here to rule you or exploit you. We're here because you called for help and no one answered. That's unacceptable to us. But the stories say humans are dangerous, violent. Taiyang smiled, though there was sadness in it. We are dangerous. We won't lie about that. We evolved on a world that tried to kill us every single day. Our planet has predators that hunt in packs, whether that can freeze or cook you in hours. It's diseases that turn your own body against you. We learned to be dangerous because we had to be. But being capable of violence and choosing violence are different things. He gestured toward the debris field visible through the docking bay's viewports. Those Krath ships. We could have destroyed them all. We let some escape because we're not interested in genocide. We're interested in justice, in protection, in making sure that people like you don't die alone in the dark. In the medical center, Xian worked on a Velran miner who had sustained severe plasma burns on his back. The colony's doctors watched nervously as she applied something from her medical kit. A foam that seemed to merge with damaged tissue and begin regeneration immediately. What is that? One of the Velron doctors asked. Nano-regenerative gel, Xion explained. It's based on technology we developed to handle Earth's hazards. Our world has venoms, toxins, and injuries that most species would consider impossible to survive. We had to get good at emergency medicine. Will it work on Velron physiology? The nanites are programmed to work with carbon-based biochemistry. They'll adapt to his cellular structure and accelerate natural healing. He should be functional in a few days instead of weeks. The Velran doctor watched in amazement as the burned tissue began to show signs of repair, new skin growing beneath the protective gel. This is incredible. We have nothing like this. Most species don't need it, Xion said quietly. Most species evolved on worlds that were relatively safe. Earth taught us that survival requires constant innovation. Back in the docking bay, Minho was coordinating with the colony's engineers, assessing damage to the shield generators and power systems. The Krath bombardment had stressed the colony's infrastructure badly, and several systems were on the verge of failure. We can fabricate replacement parts, Minho told the lead engineer. Our manufacturing systems are designed for field operations. Give us the specifications, and we'll have what you need in a few hours. The engineer, an older Velron with decades of experience, studied the human with cautious respect. You came prepared for this. For rescue operations, we came prepared for whatever we might find. That's how humans work. We plan for the worst and hope for the best. I've heard Earth is quarantined because your species is too dangerous. But you don't seem dangerous to me. You seem prepared. Minho smiled. Those things aren't mutually exclusive. We are dangerous. Every human on this ship could kill with their bare hands if necessary. We're stronger than most species, faster, more durable. But we're also trained, disciplined, and motivated by something beyond personal gain. We're here because saving lives matters to us. As the hours passed, the Shadow of Earth's crew worked alongside the colonists, repairing damaged systems, treating wounded, and slowly transforming the atmosphere from terror to cautious hope. The humans moved through the colony with confident efficiency, their physical capabilities obvious but never threatening. When a heavy piece of debris needed to be moved, Private J simply picked it up and carried it, something that would have required 3 Velrons with mechanical assistance. When a child wandered too close to a damaged power conduit, Sergeant Deho moved with startling speed to pull them to safety, his reflexes far beyond what most species could achieve. The colonists began to understand. Humans were dangerous, yes, but they were dangerous in the way a guard dog was dangerous, protective rather than predatory. As evening fell on Thatni, Taeyong stood with Velinara on an observation deck, looking out at the stars. The debris field had been cleared, the colony's systems were stabilizing, and the wounded were recovering faster than anyone had expected. "What happens now?" Velinara asked quietly. "Now you rebuild," Taeyong said, "and you decide what you want to tell the Council about what happened here. They want to know about you. About Earth's presence in this sector. Let them know. The secret was never going to last forever. We were just waiting for the right moment to reveal ourselves. This was the right moment." 3 days after the battle, the Shadow of Earth prepared to depart that night. The colony's systems were fully operational again. Its wounded were recovering, and its people were beginning to process what had happened. They had been saved by a species that shouldn't exist, protected by warriors from a world so hostile that its very name carried warnings in council databases. Captain Taeyong stood in the repaired command center with Colony. Director Velinara reviewing the final status reports. The humans had done more than just defend the colony. They had upgraded several systems, provided advanced medical supplies, and left behind communication equipment that would allow Thatnine to contact the Shadow of Earth if they needed help again. "You're really leaving?" Velinara asked, though she knew the answer. "We have to," Taeyang replied. "This sector is large, and there are other colonies that might need assistance. But we'll be listening. If you need us, call. We'll come. The Council is going to have questions. They've already sent 3 messages demanding to know what happened here." "Tell them," humanity responded when they wouldn't. "Tell them that quarantine doesn't mean we stopped caring about justice." Velinara's 4 arms twisted in a gesture of anxiety. "Some council members will see this as a violation of treaties. Earth agreed to limited contact with the wider galaxy. Earth agreed to those treaties before the Council started abandoning frontier colonies," Taeyang said, his voice harder. "We've been watching for years, Velinara. We've seen the Council's protection become increasingly selective. Rich core worlds get immediate response to threats. Poor frontier colonies get classified as acceptable losses. That's not the galaxy we want to live in." Before Velinara could respond, Communications Officer G1 approached with a tablet. "Captain, we're getting a transmission from the Galactic Council. Admiral Vexla is requesting to speak with you directly." Taeyang exchanged glances with Velinara. This was the moment he had known was coming. The moment when humanity's secret presence in the frontier would have to be explained to the powers that govern civilized space. "Put him through." The holographic display activated, showing Admiral Vexla's angular features. The Torvan officer looked older than he had in the transmission to Velinara, stress evident in his posture. Behind him, Taeyang could see other council members gathered. Representatives from a dozen species watching with various expressions of concern and curiosity. "I am Captain Taeyang, of the Earth vessel Shadow of Earth," Taeyang said formally. "Admiral Vexla, I believe you wanted to speak with me." "Captain Taeyang," Vexla said slowly, as if tasting the words. "I have reviewed the sensor data from Thatnine. I have seen the wreckage of 9 Krath warships. I have heard testimony from Colony Director Velinara about Earth's intervention. I have many questions. I'll answer what I can, Admiral. Begin with this. How long has Earth been operating military vessels in Council space without authorization?" "Approximately 15 years. We have multiple ships on patrol in frontier sectors, observing and occasionally intervening when civilian populations are threatened. The council chamber erupted in overlapping voices. Representatives shouting questions and accusations. Vexla raised a hand for silence. You admit to violating Earth's quarantine agreements. We admit to protecting people who needed protection, Taiyang corrected. The quarantine was supposed to be mutual isolation while the council decided how to handle contact with a Deathworld species. Instead, it became an excuse to ignore human capabilities when you had problems we could solve. The quarantine exists because human capabilities are dangerous. A council member from the Drath Consortium interjected. Your species evolved in conditions that make you physically superior to most civilized races. Your presence destabilizes the established order. Taiyang felt Minho tense beside him, but he kept his own voice calm. Our presence saves lives. Thatanine had 3,000 civilians who would be dead or enslaved right now if we hadn't intervened. The Krath swarm has raided 17 colonies in the last 2 years. How many of those raids succeeded because council response times were too slow? Desla looked uncomfortable. Fleet deployment requires coordination. We cannot respond instantly to every threat. But you could have responded to Thatanine. You had ships that could have arrived in 4 cycles if you had prioritized. Civilian lives over resource allocation? You chose not to. We chose differently. Another council member, a Velox representative, spoke up. Your ship destroyed 9 Krath vessels in minutes. The tactical analysis suggests capabilities far beyond what should be possible for a frigate-class vessel. This raises serious concerns about human military development. Of course, we developed advanced military capabilities, Taiyang said bluntly. We come from a world where everything is trying to kill you. We learned to build better, fight smarter, and survive longer because we had to. Would you prefer we had remained helpless so you could feel more comfortable? The council chamber fell silent. Finally, Vexla spoke again, his voice more measured. Captain Taiyang, understand the council's position. We have spent centuries maintaining peace through careful balance of power. Introducing a new military force, especially one from a restricted world, threatens that balance. Your balance was already threatened, Taiyang replied. Pirates operate with impunity on the frontier because they know council response is slow and predictable. Colonies live in fear because they know protection might not come when they need it. Your peace is fragile because it's built on abandoning the people who can't defend themselves. He took a breath, choosing his next words carefully. Humanity doesn't want to destabilize the council. We don't want to conquer or dominate. We just want to do what you're not doing effectively enough, protecting the vulnerable. If that threatens your balance of power, then maybe your power wasn't balanced to begin with. Velinara stepped forward, her voice firm. Admiral Vexla, I speak as someone who experienced both council abandonment and human intervention. The Shadow of Earth asked for nothing in return for saving our colony. They didn't demand resources or political concessions. They helped because it was the right thing to do. If the council sees that as a threat, then the council has lost its way. More murmuring from the assembled representatives. Dexla studied Taiyang through the holographic display, his expression unreadable. What are Earth's intentions going forward? We will continue patrolling the frontier sectors, Taiyang said. We will respond to distress calls that go unanswered. We will defend colonies that need defending. We will do this openly now, not in secret. If the council wants to work with us, we're willing to coordinate. If not, we'll operate independently. That could be seen as a declaration of unauthorized military action. Call it what you want, Admiral. We call it doing the right thing. Alexla was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was softer. I did not want to abandon Thatanine. The decision was made by committee, by people calculating acceptable losses. I have made too many such calculations in my career. He straightened, seeming to come to a decision. I cannot speak for the entire council, but I believe there is room for cooperation. The frontier is vast, and threats are many. Perhaps Earth's unique capabilities could be valuable if properly integrated. I'm not interested in being properly integrated, if that means following the same broken protocols that left Thatanine to die, Taiyang said. But if the council is willing to prioritize lives over politics, we can talk. I will present your position to the full council. Expect further communication. Captain Taiyang, off the record, I am glad you saved those people. Whatever else comes from this, that matters. The transmission ended. Taiyang stood in the sudden silence, aware that he had just fundamentally altered humanity's relationship with the wider galaxy. There would be consequences, both good and bad. Some council members would see Earth as a partner. Others would see them as a threat. But at least now, everyone would know. Humans were here. They were watching. And they would not stand idle while innocents suffered. What do you think will happen? Velinara asked quietly. I think the galaxy is going to have to adjust to the fact that Deathworlders aren't the monsters they feared, Taiyang said. We're just people who refuse to let fear or politics stop us from doing what's right. 6 hours later, the shadow of Earth departed Thatanine, its engines burning bright as it accelerated toward the next patrol route. On the colony, 3,000 Velrans watched it go, no longer seeing a ship from a quarantined death world, but seeing their saviors. Returning to the darkness to watch over other forgotten places in the council chambers, debates raged about Earth's revelation and what it meant for galactic order. Some called for sanctions, others for cooperation. And a few quietly admitted that maybe humanity's presence was exactly what the frontier needed, and in the deep black between stars. Other human ships continued their silent patrols, listening for distress calls, watching for threats, ready to respond when others wouldn't or couldn't on Earth. In the military command center buried deep beneath the capital, Fleet Admiral Yemen reviewed Captain Taiyang's report with a mixture of pride and concern. The secret was out. Humanity's long period of observation had ended.